This issue of a smackdown also applies domestically in terms of the president taking on some of his critics. Over the issue of immigration, I want to bring in Republican Congressman Steve King of Iowa, who was in Ames yesterday for the Family Leadership Summit, which I'll get to in just a moment. Congressman King, let me start, though, with immigration. The president's press conference on Friday. Here's what he said about Republicans, especially those of you conservatives in the House, when it comes to immigration reform.
The problem is internal Republican caucus politics. And that's what the American people don't want us to be worrying about. Don't worry about your Washington politics. Solve problems.
When the president does that, Congressman, does that put more pressure on you or less pressure on you when you're back home?
Well, I think it brings support for me when I'm back home. I've spent time at the State Fair, at the Family Leadership Summit yesterday. I've been all over my district in Iowa, which is 39 of the 99 counties. It is a universal message that says, hold your ground, keep telling the truth, defend the rule of law, and defend the Constitution. So that's my message back to the president. I think that's divisive politics. If we can't restore the rule of law in this, and then how are we going to enforce immigration law going forward if we accept the Senate's Gang of 8 amnesty bill?
The bill moving forward, but as you say, not with a pathway to citizenship for those illegal immigrants here. There is a move toward the DREAM Act, which is allowing illegal immigrants who are children of those who came here illegally and are pursuing lives in America to get legal status. You spoke out memorably now last month when you made some comparisons about those folks. Here's what you said.
For everyone who's a valedictorian, there's another 100 out there that they weigh 130 pounds and they've got calves the size of cantaloupes because they're hauling 75 pounds of marijuana across the desert.
Those numbers have been debunked. Your leadership has called those remarks hateful. My question to you is that a real belief, and do you think it's a constructive belief, that those people who are here, who have grown up here, who go to college, who get jobs, you really think most of them are drug smugglers?
I didn't say that, David, and my numbers have not been debunked. I said valedictorians compared to people who would be legalized under the act that are drug smugglers coming across the border. My characterization was exclusively to drug smugglers. And anybody that understands the language and the culture should be able to watch that tape and know that.
Right. But as you know, Congressman, just for the record, just as you know,
class per year, David.
Hold on, Congressman. I just want to make sure that people don't think they have been debunked without getting into the methodology. There's no accurate way to compare those two things in the way that you tried to so neatly do so.
Then what's their number? How many valedictorians do they suggest? And I'll tell you, I've seen the drug smugglers. I've spent time on the border. I've ridden with the Border Patrol. I sit on the fence at night. I sit in a ranch house, and the Border Patrol come to me in civilian clothes, and they tell me narrative after narrative. And so for this to be characterized by Dick Durbin as valedictorians, I'm telling the American people that I recognize that. And part of that quote before that was, that tugs at my heartstrings too, the valedictorians. But this proposes to legalize a lot of people. It'll include the people who are drug smugglers up to the age of 35. You cannot do a background check on people that don't have a legal existence in their home country. And the people that are advocating for this don't understand the full scope. So it's time we had a national debate on what really happens with this. My heart goes out to valedictorians who are brought in here by their parents. So does everybody's in America. But we cannot put our sympathies for people in that condition greater than our love for the rule of law or the sovereignty of the United States of America. That is the debate, and that's why it didn't pass back in 2006 and 2007. The American people rose up, and I think they'll rise up again and put a stop to this and restore the rule of law, David.
Congressman King, thank you very much for joining us from Iowa this morning. It gets us back to the round table and the immigration debate. Anna, what does this say to you about the prospects of real reform coming out of the House?
Well, first of all, I think Congressman King should go get himself some therapy for his melon fixation. I think there might be medication for that. I think he's a mediocre congressman who's got no legislative record, and the only time he makes national press is when he comes out and says something offensive about the undocumented or Hispanics. And frankly, I think he's being helpful to the immigration debate, because it is emboldening other Republicans to speak out strongly against him. People like John Boehner, like Eric Cantor, like Paul Ryan. We're not going to stand anymore for the Republican Party being defined by somebody like Steve King. There are other voices who are the adults in the room and who are working hard towards a reform, and I think it's going to happen. I'm more optimistic than most.
Before I let him go, he just heard that. Congressman King, do you want to respond to that in terms of what actually is going to get accomplished?
Well, I would say this. First of all, I spoke only of drug smugglers, and if Ann understands the language, she should know that. I didn't insult her, I didn't insult other Republicans, and I didn't violate the 11th commandment that Reagan gave to us. And so we should look at this from the big picture. There are people in America who are dying today because of our immigration policy and our open border. They're part of this debate, too. Where's your compassion for the families who have lost their children, lost their family members that are buried today because we didn't enforce immigration law? Do you understand that 80 to 90% of the illegal drugs consumed in America come from or through Mexico? Terrorists infiltrate through that border. We need to secure the border first, restore the rule of law, then we can have this discussion that you want to get to.
All right,
Let's not be insulting people in the process.
Oh, you're going to talk to me about insulting people,
All right, Governor Richardson, let me get your comment on this.
Well, I think what the congressman is advocating is basically shameful. But at the same time, there is a problem in the House of Representatives. And the problem is that the House will not take up the Senate bill the way it is. What needs to happen is a procedural fix, followed by, right now in the August recess, evangelical groups, law enforcement business groups are focusing on Republicans that are the key. What I would do if I were the president is I'd ask Vice President Biden to lead an effort to make some procedural deals. Have part of the House bill, not just border security, but some kind of naturalization, be part of a package that goes to the Senate, make the deal in conference. That's the way to go.
David, the larger point here, if immigration doesn't get passed this fall, if it is put off, you're talking about a first year for the president devoid of this major legacy item that he campaigned on both times, especially this past.
And you're talking about the breakdown of our political institutions. This is a problem that the country wants to see addressed, and to see our institutions fail is just would be tragic. I must say, to speak frankly, watching Congressman King, you understand why the Republicans have a problem. That rhetoric may speak well to parts of the Republican Party base, but it doesn't speak to the country, especially not to a country that's changing the way ours is. And
but David, it's unfair. It really is unfair to paint the Republican Party broadly with what Steve King says. He's not.
You spoke eloquently
stereotypical
in criticizing
of the
him, and I'm really endorsing what you said.
This is a man who couldn't even get elected senator in Iowa. That's why he's not running there. This is a man whose district has been polled and supports immigration reform in the majority. So, he is. But this is his call to fame. That's his game.
All right, let me leave this there.